What's up, everybody? This is the Sports League Podcast. Back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak, and we got a very special guest on the show. Former NBA, Milwaukee Bucks player, longtime, great Hall of Famer, two-time Defensive Player of the Year, Sidney Moncrief. Great to have you on the show, Sidney.
Hey, Alex, good to be on the show. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, it's an honor. And for those of you that don't know, Sidney Moncrief is a former Arkansas Razorback, Hall of Honor member, first player in school history to have his jersey number retired. Sidney played in the NBA from 1979 to 1991 with the Milwaukee Bucks, and was Defensive Player of the Year 2 years in a row, and a member of the College and Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. Great to have you on, Sidney. And what does that mean when you look back on those accolades? I mean, college and pro Hall of Famer, you're just a hell of a basketball player, right?
Yeah, sometimes this breaks. I'm also high school Hall of Fame, so that's kind of unusual with your high school, college, and pro. And it's just each one is unique and different, and you can't say you feel more proud of one than the other because high school is a little bit political here and there with high schools, but still, that's a great honor. And then college came, I think, a year before the Naismith Hall of Fame. I was inducted into the College Hall of Fame. So I did college and NBA or Naismith back to back. So that was pretty exciting.
Nice. Do you credit a lot of your basketball success? Like, you were an excellent offensive player, but you really, like, defensive side of the ball is about like sacrifice and effort and discipline. Do you credit a lot of your success for just putting in the work on the defensive side of the ball?
I think that's how I was brought up from high school, where you had to play defense with Coach Oliver Elders. One time I had a great offensive game, and I came in feeling good about myself. And he said, "Hey, come in here. I want to show you a film. Let's watch some film." We didn't watch film very much. I was just feeling like, oh, yeah, he's going to see my 30 points and 15 rebounds. Then he proceeded to say, he just showed me every mistake I made on defense and how much awareness I didn't have and how lousy I was. And I would never be a great player unless I learned to play defense. And that kind of got me thinking more about the defensive end. I played for Coach Eddie Sutton for 4 years at Arkansas. He was a defensive guru. That's what we cut our teeth on, playing good defense. And then I went with Don Nelson and John Killalay at the Milwaukee Bucks. And I tell you what, Don Nelson and John Killalay, they were deaf in teaching the correct way to play defense on the professional level, which is totally different than college. I've had good training the entire time, and I never really saw myself as a great defensive player. I just played defense. I went out there and just put forth effort and tried to follow the scouting report and just tried to play the best defense that I possibly could.
Do you think when you watch the modern game, I'm a big defensive guy. Like, I grew up watching the Bad Boys Pistons, the Ben Wallace Pistons, great defensive teams. Do you think that's something that's significantly missing from the modern NBA? Like some of these players, they don't really want to play defense, and sometimes the rule changes make that more difficult too. Do you think?
Well, a lot of players didn't want to play defense when I played either. That hasn't really changed. The percentage of guys that really want to play defense compared to the guys that want to score. I think most players, even when I played, they wanted to score the basketball. I think the fact that the rules have been loosened to the point where there's more freedom of movement. Now you have more three-point shots, and now you have to defend the three-point shot, which means you sometimes give up penetration, and everything starts happening when the defense breaks down with penetration. I think there's a lot of factors working against players. When I coached in the NBA, I would say the same number of players really bought into defense then than they did when I played. It's just obvious. It's glaring. You watch it in the game, you're like, God, they're getting some really open shots. How are they getting these open shots? Oh, they just drove for a layup, totally uncontested. Those guys, oh, they just passed a layup for a three-point shot. Those type of things you watch, you kind of like scratch your head, but that's the way they play the game now, and you just have to respect it and just try to enjoy it to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I think that's what separates players, because there's so few many that sacrifice on the defensive side of the ball. Like, to me, I really take pride in being a fan of the two-way players, the Jimmy Butlers, the Kawhi Leonards, the Sidney Moncriefs, the Michael Jordans, Joe Dumars, guys like that, who, you have to be decent on the offensive side of the ball, but then that put the effort in on the defensive side of the ball as well.
Yeah. I never quite understood how people could rate players some of the best in the history of the game when they only shot the ball or they were
Yeah.
offensive players. They just scored a ton of points. You might say that player was one of the best offensive players in the history of the game of basketball. But to be a great player, you have to play offense, defense. You need to rebound. You need to pass the basketball. You need to be totally unselfish. You have to know the game plan, all the little things. You have to be a great teammate.
Yeah.
That's when you become a great basketball player. But it's not when you just score points.
Yep, 100%.
That's just my opinion. Obviously, most people think differently, but that's just how I feel about it.
I agree with you 100%. Definitely. And so, while you were at Arkansas, you helped lead the Razorbacks the 1978 Final Four run, and then in 1979 to the Elite Eight. What was it like taking Arkansas, being a part of those deep tournament runs in the late 70s?
We just rock and roll. Sometimes when you're just playing basketball and you're having fun, you're not really thinking about the what you're creating. You're just out there playing and competing, and good things happen to you, and you don't even realize they're happening because you're having so much fun. And that was a great case when I went to the Final Four one year and then followed it up the next year, one bucket away from the Final Four again. We lost to Larry Bird's team at Indiana State, who later went on to play Michigan State. And now that I look back on it, that's hard to do. It's really hard to go to the Final Four once, but to get there, Final Four once, Final Eight, one basket away from being in the Final Four the second time. That's extremely difficult to do. I was fortunate enough to play on great teams, excellent coaches, and we were able to do that 2 years.
Is it cool to look back and think about, playing against Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and these legends of the game, Michael Jordan, guys like that, and you defended them a lot of the time as well, right?
Well, I didn't do a good job of defending them, but I was on the court with them. But what's really special? It was really because I played with Larry in college, played with Magic a little bit in college, great players. But what's really unique is when you grow up watching players play, and then you go to the NBA and you're playing against those players.
Yeah,
I grew up in the early 70s watching basketball with the Celtics and the Lakers and all those teams, and then in ABA. Then you're playing against these guys, and people always say, "Well, how did it feel?" It felt like you were on the playground or in the gym playing against guys in high school or college. You know what I'm saying? You just go out there and you're just competing, and you're just trying to give your best effort. You're not like, "Oh, I'm playing against Dr. J, oh, David Thomas, or Kareem." You're not even, my mind was never like that. It's like, okay, I have a game, great players, I need to just perform. And that's all I was concerned about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, as a fan, you just sit back in awe, and as a player, when you're on the court, it's like you got a job to do. You can't afford to be in awe, right?
You really should not be, because if you are, then that means you're behind the game, right? They have you in their pocket. And I just never was one I didn't have fear. I certainly didn't show fear. I didn't show fear because I didn't have fear. People ask, well, how did it feel to play against Michael Jordan? Well, Michael Jordan, you just knew he was one of the greatest players ever, but you didn't go out there and say, oh, I'm playing against Michael Jordan. No, you go out there and just play your best game, and hopefully things will work out.
Yeah.
It didn't, but hopefully it could have, Right.
Yeah. So you're an Arkansas Razorback alumni. Your jersey's retired. You're a member of the Hall of Honor. How do you feel about the hiring of new head coach John Calipari? It's a splash hire. Calipari's had a lot of success, a former national champion, 3-time coach of the year, over 800 career wins in college basketball. And going to Arkansas, I hate to bring it up, hasn't made the Final Four since 1995. Do you think Cal can bring that success to Arkansas?
I think Cal will bring success to Arkansas, no doubt. The Final Four is hard to do.
Yeah.
It's just not a given. It never was a given that you can hire a coach or get good players, you're automatically going to make the Final Four. He will put Arkansas, like Eric Musselman, in a position to compete to get to the Final Four. And I have all the confidence in his coaching ability. One thing about Cal, you don't hear his players say negative things about him. He's managed to cultivate those relationships to where they know that he cares about them as people beyond basketball players. That goes a long ways. He'll do very well at Arkansas, no doubt.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that hire. And, it's good for college basketball when Arkansas is good and competitive. And so it's going to be fun to keep an eye on that going forward. You would be selected the 5th overall pick in the 1979 NBA draft, the same class as Magic Johnson, number 1 overall. What was it like being drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks, and was it an adjustment back then to go from the college game to the pro to the 82-game schedule and all of that?
I worked so hard in the summertime. For me, it wasn't much of an adjustment. I did have to adjust to the physicality of the NBA. Because college back then, you could not look at someone without them calling fouls. Certainly touching, bodying, that was out. I remember when I got to Milwaukee, we were doing a defensive drill, and I was just doing the slides. I had space between me and the guy I was guarding, and Nelly. Yeah, no, Sidney, you can't play defense. This is the NBA. They need to feel you a little bit more.
Nice.
Needed to hear that once. And so I just started becoming more physical in how I would defend. But the conditioning, I took care of my body. I didn't drink or do drugs. So the conditioning of going from college playing 1 year we played 38 games to playing 82 games, to me, it was not much. However, after about 3 years, I was playing heavy minutes, and that was difficult. And on the 82-game schedule, and you're playing 40, 42, sometimes 44 minutes in a ball game, that was pretty difficult.
And you kind of did you have to deal with like some knee issues coming in? I remember I heard an interview talking about like where it was like a stress test on your knee and you couldn't put much power. Was that?
Yeah, I had zero power.
Yeah.
Zero power. It used to be a Cybex machine where they would measure the strength in your knee, and you would just like extend and just you push it up real hard, and it should have a big peak. And mine was flatline. When the Bulls saw that, they're like, we're not drafting this guy. So I did have a chondromalacia, which is a condition where the roughening of the kneecap caused a lot of friction and irritation with the knee joint. And it took a lot of weights, and I would take a Jeff Snedeker, the trainer, he would take weights on the road, and I would be in my room doing those, those weights that you wrap around your leg and just keeping my legs strong. I had to do that every day. I had to ice my knees after every practice, after every game. The discipline that was required to stay healthy was pretty amazing. I was able to maintain it through the help of Jeff Snedeker, and just knowing that without it, I didn't have any strength in my knee or my legs.
Wow, that's impressive, and to have the career you had despite that is, and the dedication. You were a worker. You can tell.
Yes. To me, that was Coach Sutton said that was my claim to fame, that he would outwork everybody that was on the basketball court. And I developed that just playing pickup games in the neighborhood, because when you lost, you had to sit down. You just just mess around. The kids now, when they play one-on-one, they don't play make it take it. If you get the other person get the ball. I came from the time where if you didn't stop someone, you didn't see the basketball. If you didn't win, you sat down, and you sat down behind a lot of people. The competitiveness of how you played in the summer was totally different, which changed how you played during the basketball season.
Awesome. That's a cool story right there. In your 3rd season in the NBA, you would lead the Bucks in points, rebounds, assists, and get them to the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. What was that 1982 season like, and what was it like coming up and then establishing yourself as one of the leaders and the best players with the Bucks organization?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Coach Nelson, he had a way of putting players in the right position to succeed, and he did that for me because I was more of a swing type player, inside player, and he helped me to utilize my strength inside as opposed to trying to make me a totally shooting guard. I was like a power post guard.
There you go.
Up people and being in the paint a lot. And that definitely helped me become a better player, more effective player. But I didn't really think about what I was doing. I didn't think about I was leading the team in this and that. And we were just balling out. I like to say we were just balling. That's how we were doing. And when you're doing that and you're not really thinking about your stats as much, or it's a beautiful thing. For me, it was, because you're just playing at your highest level, and you're doing it. It's a purity of why you were doing it, because you wanted to be the best. You want your team to win. And it wasn't about winning individual awards. It was about winning games.
I like that mindset. Sometimes you wonder with the modern athletes, are they playing it that way? Are they, for incentive boosts in their contracts or off the field, commercials and stuff like that? And a quote that Jordan had that really stuck with me is like, you play to win the game, and the stats will follow. Just go out there and play your best.
They will follow. And in the defense of the newer players, it's hard not to be stat chasers. It's hard because everything is right up there. All the stats are right. They're all around the arena, right? When I played, the only time you saw a stat machine, a stat sheet, is when you saw physically you saw a stat sheet, and that was normally after the game.
Yeah.
But now you can just look up there and say, I need one more rebound for a triple double. Like those type things. Let me miss a shot on purpose to get my own rebound. The system is certainly slanted towards players chasing stats more than what it was years ago.
Yeah. Did you feel cheated at all? So the Defensive Player of the Year award didn't start until 1983. You potentially could have won 3 of them, but you did win the first 2 ever Defensive Player of the Year awards, and you're the only guard in NBA history to win multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards. What does that mean to you?
No, not much. I'm serious. I mean, I guess it does mean something, because typically Defensive Player of the Year is reserved, you're right, for bigger players.
Yeah.
It's easy for a center that block shots to win Defensive Player of the Year. It's very difficult for a guard to do it, because you're doing a lot of grunt work. You're actually playing 94 feet most of the time. Defensively, you're playing 50 feet across, right? And you're playing 45 feet half court. So you're on the grind.
Yeah.
But you're doing a lot of things that people don't notice. If you're not getting steals or blocking shots, people don't normally notice defense. And I always pride myself in being a very good defensive player off the basketball. On the ball, I was average, but off the ball, I did my work early. That's why I was a good defender. Because if a player catches a basketball on you in the NBA, even when I played, you're dead. And if they catch it in their sweet spot, it's over. My goal was to make sure players did not catch the ball in those spots, push them out, and push them to our defense the way it was set up. And that's why I was so successful. And winning it 2 times for a guard, that's hard to do. Very, very difficult.
Yeah, so when I watch film, I like to notice like the hand up on the shot, to make it a little bit more difficult, or even the layup. It's like just that good defense, putting your hand up, getting in the way, can force a miss, and you don't always see that.
Yeah, two things you said, Alex, that's so important, even in today's game, is contested shots. When you don't give up uncontested shots consistently, you have a good chance of winning. And then if you have a lot of deflections defensively with your hands, not steals necessarily, but just disrupting their offense where they have to restart, that's a good sign of an excellent defensive player or defensive team. And that's overlooked sometimes. The uncontested shots we tracked quite a bit when I coached with Don Nelson, but definitely when Scott Skiles, we tracked those uncontested shots so closely, because if we were giving up contested shots, we were probably behind, or we were not going to win that ball game.
Yeah. Yep. And then good points about like keeping the players from getting to their spots. I saw you saying that about Jordan. Like you got to keep him, keep him working. And I bet in that era, trying to keep people from their spots, it got pretty physical at times, didn't it?
It did. It was basically being physical. It was just doing your work early. We did a lot of bumping players to make sure we disrupted their path that they were trying to go to catch the basketball, and that's done early. If you wait too late to do that, you will never be a good defensive player. And I utilized the fact that if I knew the play was coming, I knew what cut was going to be made. My responsibility was to just, boom, just hit them for just a minute, knock them off balance, so they have to restart again, and that gives me the advantage.
Nice. That's very cool. Let's see. Let's go here. In the 1983 playoffs, on the Bucks, you guys would 4-game sweep the Bird McHale Parrish Celtics. What was that like in that series? Sweeping 4-0 the legendary Celtics team.
Oh yeah, and guess what? Our reward was the Philadelphia 76ers. Right? So yeah, it was good. Anytime you can beat Boston. I grew up a Boston Celtic fan just when I was, gosh, in what, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. The Boston Garden was always iconic when you were a kid. You sitting there watching the game, you watch the Celtics, Bill Russell and those guys, you watch them run that fast break. The ball never hit the floor sometimes. He would read the ball, they would fake the outlet pass, they would make the pass to the opposite free throw line, they would make a jumper, or they would pass one more time for a layup. That was like beautiful basketball, the ball movement. The New York Knicks, same thing, great ball movement. So I grew up during that time watching the Celtics play. And when I first took the trip to the Garden, that's the greatest letdown a player could ever have. It's like it was a total dump. The court was just in such bad shape. You would have to do your pre-dribbling before the game. I mean, in shoot around, you spent more time trying to find the dead spots on the court than you did shooting the basketball.
Really?
Because, you can take the ball, you can take the ball and make your move and hit it with the dribble, and the ball didn't come back to you. In the locker room, the window was open during the winter. The cold air was coming in, the showers. It was just it was not the best experience. That was a home court advantage for the Celtics, but still beating them like that was very special, especially the fact that I was such a huge Boston fan growing up.
Nice. That's awesome. And then the 1985 playoffs, you guys beat the rookie Michael Jordan and the Bulls. What could you tell immediately with rookie Michael Jordan that he was going to be special?
Well, I could tell when he was at North Carolina. I remember watching the game, and not the last second shot that he made.
Yeah,
I remember watching the game before. I think it was in the tournament, but it was not the finals. And he drove a couple times, and you can tell if a player is going to be great or how great they're going to be and how they shoot a layup sometimes. I'm not saying just a layup where it's uncontested, how they shoot a contested layup.
Yeah.
He went in against somebody and he just took the ball and just glided and just made a move. And it was so effortless and so smooth. And I said right then, I said, he's going to be hard to guard because of the fluid motions of his body. It was just a different look that you didn't see. You don't see that. At least I didn't see that. As a matter of fact, I never saw a player in college that would shoot a ball like that. And I've said they're going to be great, but I saw it with him. And so I kind of knew he was going to be a special player. How special, I wasn't sure. I knew that he was going to be someone that I would have to work overtime to try to guard. I knew that because he was really good. I saw the same thing with the Edwards kid he's not Michael Jordan. Don't get this twisted. Yeah. But Georgia was playing Arkansas, and Anthony Edwards drove the ball against Arkansas. He went up. He was so graceful, and the way he moved the ball and finished to that layup, I'm like, wow. I said that. Yeah. And people say, well, it's just a layup. No, it's not just a layup. You have to look at the position of the bodies and how fluid and how easily they move to make that layup. He had the same thing in the way he goes to the basket and finishes shots. Michael had it when he was a sophomore, and I could see that.
Nice. That's a great take right there. Great insight. Do you get into, nowadays ESPN, FS1, all these sports networks, they talk about the GOAT debate all the time, and it's Jordan, LeBron. And I always bring up, man, you got to talk about Magic. You got to talk about Bird, Kareem, Bill Russell, Wilt. The NBA history is so deep, and they don't always talk about all of those guys. They want to talk about Jordan and LeBron. You know, you got to talk about Kobe. You got to talk about Shaq, Tim Duncan. Do you get into that debate at all?
I don't. I think the GOAT debate is good to have. Certainly, it's fun to hear. I think it should be based on things that you're talking about. It should be based on just eye candy. It should
Yeah.
be based on just championships. It should be based on the impact of the game. And Kareem was a dominant player from high school,
Yeah.
dominant,
Yeah.
college dominant, NBA dominant. It needs to be the breadth of that player's career. Now, LeBron did not play college, so he's lacking a little bit there. And Michael was not dominant in high school.
Hmm.
Was not really dominant in college. He was a very dominant NBA player. But I think it should be by decades. I really do.
Yeah.
And I think, in all fairness, it should be every. And I think the Houston Chronicle, one of those newspapers years ago, they would have the all-decade team.
Hmm.
They would pick the top five or 10 players from that decade, and that's how I feel players should be judged, by when they played.
Yes. The era.
So
Yeah.
the era so different from one era to the next. How can you, if you can average a lot of points in today's NBA, so it shouldn't be points. They get free shots. They get 3-point shots. A 3-point shot was not a factor. So you really can't gauge the 80s to 2020s. It's just very difficult to do. But you can do it by decades, and that's how I like to do it too. And then for me, if you don't play offense and defense, then you can't be one of the GOAT. You can't be a GOAT. How can you be a GOAT if you only score the basketball?
Exactly.
To me, it's just so many other factors. How can you be a GOAT if you never dominate in college, in high school? Greatest player ever. That's that encompasses, to me, a lot more than just the NBA.
And so it's, it sounds like you're hinting at Kareem there, and Kareem's sky hook, the most indefensible shot probably of all time. Like, how are you going to block that?
Well, yeah, I'm a big Kareem fan, and of course Michael Jordan, I'm a big fan, and I've watched, when I coach in the NBA, I watch LeBron James. That's like somebody 6'8" when he was younger, and you saw that kind of athleticism and speed and his basketball IQ. They all bring special things to the game of basketball that's fun to watch, and it gives players something to shoot for, which I think is pretty neat.
Yeah, and I'm a big Kobe proponent as well, and I think his work ethic. You talk about your work ethic, and Kobe's work ethic was what separated him a lot.
Yes, he put in the time, and he was a we call him he was the assassin pretty much. He just went after you offensively like nobody else, and he's a special player.
The 2024 NBA playoffs start on Saturday. Are you excited? And I have a hard time seeing anyone beating the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic. I think they might repeat. Do you think the same thing?
If they stay healthy, health is always, to me, the big factor in the NBA playoffs. If they stay healthy, I think they would be very difficult to beat. Boston has some stuff going that they can get on that roll, and they could be pretty good. Milwaukee, we just don't know about my Bucks, dude. We don't know what's going to happen. With that team, there's a difficult transition when you make a trade, and they have a lot going on. I think the Lakers, I don't know about that, but Denver is, to me, the team that has shown the most consistency the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I root for Giannis. I love that 2021 championship, and if healthy, the Bucks are a threat. But I think that Drew Holiday going to the Celtics is a huge add to that team. And do you see any similarities? Drew Holiday, 6'4" guard that defends. Any similarities to your game with Drew Holiday?
Yeah, a little bit. He has better hands. I didn't have good hands. I had good feet, and I was more of a leaper. I could actually, I'm not saying you can't block a shot, but I could go up, and if a guy was going for a layup, I had good lift on my elevation. But he's very strong with his hands. Remind me of Alvin Robinson. Remember Alvin Robinson? He played at Arkansas too. Darrell Walker. They had strong hands, and with him, once he gets your body and locks you up with his hands, it's very difficult to score on him. He's more of a 1-2. I was more of a 2-1.
Okay.
But I do see some similarities, and he had more talent. I think I played harder, at least I appear to play harder because he's had more skill than I did. So he doesn't seem to have to put as much energy into what he does than I had to do. But I do see some similarities between us.
Yeah. So if I was gonna make a pick right now, I would say Nuggets Celtics NBA Finals, and give me the Nuggets in 6.
Yeah, well, if they play the Celtics, yeah, I'm going to have to flip a corner on that one. I'm going to have to flip a corner because the Celtics, the type of team that could get really hot and go on those streaks, and they can go on a streak the other way too. We know that. It's like the heck is going on here. I think if they keep their confidence, the thing I notice is the confidence for great players is less than great players years ago. In other words, they can go in the tank, I think, quicker.
Yeah.
They're going to tank quicker. You're like, what? They can be great 1 game or 2 games. All of a sudden, they can disappear 2 games. And this could be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think the team that has shown the most consistency in how they play has been the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs. They don't go in the tank very much. And the game is tight. If it's a close game, they found a way to make plays to win it. If Boston can just get a little mentally tougher, people said more physical, no, just mentally tougher.
I agree.
They certainly have the team to beat anybody in the playoffs.
Yeah. And the Bucks Pacers is going to be a great first round series. I hope Giannis can play the majority of those games.
Yeah, the Pacers, the way they play that pace, and Milwaukee has had trouble, as we know, matching up against athletic teams.
Yeah,
they're that. But the Bucks also have a lot of pride. They play with pride, and that should be a good matchup. Should be.
I can't wait. I'm not I don't pay attention as much to the regular season. Nowadays with the no defense and just it's harder for me to get into it. But once the playoffs start, I'm all in. So I'm gonna be watching every game.
Well, I was telling someone, they were talking about the WNBA and they were talking about college basketball, and they were college basketball people, and I said, it's nothing like a good NBA game. Because the talent that I like to see players that can make plays.
Yeah.
And you don't, WNBA, I mean, the college, women's college, they can't, a lot of women can't make plays. He said that, but they can make the difficult plays. They can make the shots. College basketball, a lot of players, men's, can't make plays. NBA is like play after play after play, and it's more exciting. The athleticism shows everything that I admire so much about the game of basketball. It's on full display with the NBA, especially in the playoffs. Yeah,
when that desperation gets in, they start playing harder on defense, and I love a good 7-game series, and so
they ball out. It's fun to watch.
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot. And you have a new book out, right? Called "Get Off the Bench and Get in the Game," right? Can you tell us about that book and where to get that?
Get off the bench, people, and get in the game. And it's a parallel between when you are a basketball player, and I used some of my stories when I was younger, when I was junior high school, how I was a bench player and things that I had to do to get off the bench and get in the game. And so it's a fun book. I thoroughly enjoyed writing it. It's about the workplace, but it's also about athletics. We talk about the mentality of a bench player and the different stages. You have the bencher, you have the bench warmer, you have the starter, you have the chronic bench warmer. Then I talk about the sideline dweller who's just there. They're not doing anything with people on the sideline. So I do a lot of fun comparisons, and I'm hoping to help people aspire to do more if they would like in their lives, not just in the workplace, not just in athletics, but just generally. And you can go to SidneyMoncrief.com, SidneyMoncrief.com, pretty simple. And you can order the book. I will sign it for you. Order 2 or 3 books and just say, I want all the books signed. And I'll sign a copy and send it to you. So it's an amazing, it's book number 12 for me.
Wow.
I think it's going to be my greatest books yet.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll put it in the link in the description. I'll put it on my, get people to get it and get off the bench and get in the game, guys.
Get off the bench. It's going to be get your ass off the bench, get in the game. But some of my former teammates talked me out of putting ass on the book, so I took it off. Right. And it didn't sound right. Get your butt off the bench. So I left it off totally.
Sounds
Say
good,
hello
though.
to
Yeah,
Kobe. Say hello
I'm
to
gonna have to
Kobe.
get it
Say
and
hello
read
to Kobe.
it.
Say, hey, Kobe.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, hey. Yeah.
Well, man, it was awesome to have you on, Sydney. Amazing interview, legend, Hall of Famer, and thanks so much. This was an amazing interview and an honor for me.
Well, thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me. And I guess I need to say go Bucks and go to
Yeah,
SidneyMoncrief.com. Get my new book.
sounds good.
All
Thanks
right.
a lot.
Okay.
Have a great week, guys,
Okay.
and peace out.
All right. Bye.